And I'm sure there's going to be more important news before long.
Thank you.
So there we have it. Immensely remote, incredibly powerful, the quasars are probably the most significant and important objects to be identified since it was established that the galaxies really are external systems. And that was nearly 60 years ago now. And when we try to probe the limits of the observable universe, it is to the quasars that we must turn. Good night.
On Monday morning on Radio 4, Patrick Moore will be reflecting on life in and out of the BBC Sound Archives. That's on Monday morning at 8:45. And on Tuesday evening, the discoverers of the first pulsar will be telling their story. That's at 7:20, again on Radio 4. On BBC One shortly, Saturday Night at the Movies presents The Pink Panther. Peter Sellers stars as the incredibly incompetent Inspector Clouseau, on, or usually off, the trail of a master crook, played by David Niven. This is BBC2. And now the programme which the BBC usually hands over to members of the public. Last week saw the 200th Open Door. Tonight, to mark the event, Ernie Google-Eye Dalton, no less, and the First Television Generation Club, with the 2001st, or rather the 201st, Open Door.
Finally cracked it. We're here. It took 2,000 letters, 3 threads.
Spanner!
You got an ad in?
I could do with a smoke.
Look down there. Don't get out of this
Well, if you'd like to apply to make your own Open Door programme, then this is the address to write to. Community Programme Unit, BBC Television, London W12 8QT. That was the last programme in the current series. Open Door will be returning in the autumn. In 20 minutes we'll be making a return call to Brass Tacks to discover viewers' reactions to the programme on nuclear power stations. First, the news and sport with Richard Whitmore.
A new plea by Mr. Callaghan for unity in the Labour Party. He was speaking at the Durham Miners' Gala. In the presence of speakers from both left and right of the Labour Party, Mr. Callaghan said that unless they conducted their own affairs properly, the nation would not entrust them with its affairs. But as Jeremy Thompson reports, most of his attack was against the Conservative government.
The bands, the banners and the crowds that once wound through Durham streets in the coalfields' heyday have long since dwindled to a fraction. Just 19 working pits remain where once there were over 70. But the gala is still the biggest and most colourful day in the miners' calendar, still one of the great platforms of the labour movement. As so often, the big meeting brought trade union and party leaders side by side with the men who may one day hope to succeed them. Though Messrs. Scargill and Ben were given warning that their elders weren't ready to stand aside yet.
Because we've been elected and we'll do our job. When we're not doing it, somebody will kick us out. They've not kicked me out yet, because I tried to do my job, and I don't apologise for doing that.
But like his fellow speakers, Mr. Callaghan had a more serious message for the party faithful.
When you see those banners go by, unity is strength. And we must learn it again today and maintain it in the face of the most ruthless, reactionary and bigoted government that I have seen in 50 years.
For once, it seemed the political differences of those on the platform were briefly set aside in a common cry for unity in the Labour movement.
The leader of the Commons, Mr. Norman St John Stevens, has said that the Labour Party executive's draft manifesto marks a sinister stage in the battle for authority inside the party. In a letter to his local Conservative association, Mr. St John Stevens said that the next general election, if Labour were elected on these proposals, might well be the last, as they considered extending the life of Parliament. There's been no sign of trouble in Northern Ireland, one of the settings for today's Protestant marches celebrating the anniversary of the Battle of the Boyne. Earlier, however, 2 Protestant Orange lodges and a Catholic parochial hall in County Tyrone were damaged. From Belfast, Peter Gould reports.
12th is the most important day in the Loyalist calendar, and in Belfast an estimated 20,000 Orangemen paraded through the streets, behind dozens of pipe and drum bands. It was a scene repeated in towns and cities throughout the province. The organisers reported the best turnout for a number of years. The Orange Lodges say there's been a big increase in membership, particularly amongst young people. Leaders of the movement have used the occasion to call for tougher government action against terrorism, including the return of the death penalty. The parades themselves passed off peacefully, although security forces stood by in case of trouble, with screens erected where the route took marchers near Catholic areas. Earlier, an Orange Hall at Whitmore in County Tyrone was damaged in a petrol bomb attack. Fires were also started at a second Orange Hall and a Catholic church.
Richard Queen, the American hostage who was released from Iran yesterday, has been flown on from Switzerland to an American Air Force hospital in Germany. Mr. Queen was able to walk to the plane at Zurich, but he had some assistance. A report from Graham Leach in Germany.
Mr. Queen was driven by ambulance from his Zurich hospital to a waiting DC-9 medical evacuation aircraft. It was then just a short flight to Frankfurt. The young consular official was said to be feeling better hour by hour. His mind was clear and he was in good spirits. Despite this, his condition had shocked his parents, who'd flown to Zurich from their home in America and who accompanied him during today's transfer. From the airport, Mr. Queen was taken to the United States Hospital at Wiesbaden, where the only other hostages to be freed by Ayatollah Khomeini were brought last November. How long he'll stay here isn't yet known, but it's thought he'll undergo treatment for his neurological condition